Give me that hot chip.
Bang, bang. Don't be talking about hot chips. Bang, bang. We are talking about game stacks, game theories. We're going to give you not one, not two, but the top 3 stacks of the week. And there are no, Dustin's trying to sneak in a 4th, but this video should hopefully be titled top 3 game stacks of week 7, something along those lines.
3.5-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to it though. Before we get into, some of y'all are more advanced than others with game stacks and what exactly that means. And they're for starters, right? When you're looking at stacking a game, what's the first thing that we are looking at, or at least I am looking at, is what is the over-unders? What's the Vegas lines per se, right? Who has the highest totals as well? So those are the 2 lines I'm looking at. For one, if anything's under 48 or 49 points, I'm kind of scratching that game off initially off my list of games to target. I'm looking for targets of games with over-unders of 55, 56, 57. So we have 6 games right now on this slate over the 11 that's above a 50. All right. Now, there's one other thing that I like to look at, because you might have a high total of like 51 or 52, but if someone is a touchdown favorite, I don't like stacking that game unless I'm using the running back for that team that's favored, because that can turn into a blowout quickly. And then the backups come in. You just don't get the fantasy points and output that you're looking for. And then lastly, I would look at some matchups, right? So you look at who's matching up with who, but that's definitely secondary. Game flow and the Vegas lines of the over-unders, and hopefully having somebody 5 points favored or less is the 2 things I'm looking for. Anything that you want to add on that part of the game theory, Price or Dustin?
I agree with you. Want to look for a high over under, because obviously Vegas is around for a reason. They make hundreds of millions of dollars for a reason. They do this shit correctly. So you want a high scoring game, and like you said, you want a competitive game. Because like, let's look at the Chiefs this week. They have a good over under, but they're 10-point favorites. So that means they're going to get up on the Broncos, and then they're just going to run the ball, and you don't know how it's going to work with Bell being in the mix and CEH and Darrell Williams, who scored touch. Like, you don't want to mess with that. You want to attack a high over under game, a competitive game, but the game theory is also, so like this week we've talked about like the Seahawks Cardinals in theory is going to be the most popular game because it's flashy offense, high scoring, Russ versus Kyler. People are going to want to touch it. They're really expensive pieces. So we talked about pivoting from that, moving down to one that's close to it, the Lions Falcons. Much easier to stack. Because if you want to, usually when you stack, you want to have quarterback, at least one receiver, if not 2, with a tight end. If it's a team that has a actual decent tight end, and then run it back with someone. If it's a high scoring game, so you expect there to be a shootout. Much easier using Stafford, Galladay, Hawkinson, Matt Ryan, Julio, Hurst. Those guys are a lot easier to fit than Russ, who's the highest priced. Hopkins is the highest priced. Metcalf's the 4th highest. Even Murray's like the 3rd highest quarterback. Like it's hard to fit. He's the 4th highest. It's hard to fit all those.
Yeah. You just went over everything I was going to go over next. Like literally everything, every piece. So the next thing would be the builds, right? And like this year, unlike last year's, if you don't know what the stack is, Price literally just went over it. If you're gonna play a quarterback, you want to have a correlation with a wide receiver typically. And this year has been a little bit different, where I think half the time that person who's won a milli has ran it back with 2 receivers. So it was Dak, Amari, and CeeDee Lamb, and they ran it back against the Browns when they played the Browns with Odell Beckham. Right. So then you can run it back as well, like Price said, because you're expecting a high scoring game. We also have had
last week
I went
with Matt Ryan, Julio, Ridley, and ran it back with Jefferson.
Bang bang right there, right? So those correlations of even you would think the game theory thought would be, if you are running more than one correlation, that means if Jones scores a touchdown that drive, that means that's one less drive that Cooper or that Ridley could score touchdowns. So in theory, you're not maximizing the opportunities by running back correlation with not one, but two players. But I feel like the game is evolving to that in some way. We'll see if that trend stays.
Especially when those games are scoring like they were, like the Minnesota Atlanta, it was like, they're both going to score because their defenses aren't good.
Yeah.
And so you just have more opportunities, more chances for big plays. And we saw that. I mean, there's multiple big plays. And so.
All right. Yeah. So that's really it. Let's get into it now. A lot of y'all might already know that, but hopefully you got a little bit of knowledge there. But you don't have to do that. You can run it solo. You don't have to have a quarterback correlation with the receiver. Ideally, that's an ideal thing, but to go contrarian, play like Cam Newton.
Yeah. Exactly.
Lamar Jackson.
Because you typically want a mobile. The only like non-mobile quarterbacks I would even consider running by themselves would be like a Breeze, who throws to just whoever's open, and like Brady. Those two seem to be the guys who don't give a shit who you are. They're going to try and score a touchdown if you're even somewhat open, and they're not going to force feed one person over and over.
Yeah.
Facts. All right. So we were talking about earlier at the start of it, Vegas lines and high over-unders. So the three obvious games Price touched on, the Lions and Falcons, the Packers and Texans, and then also the Cardinals and Seahawks. You got to take a stand somewhere, and there's a lot of people that you would say that you're going to want to stack that game. But I would say we've come to a majority consensus here that we're going to fade this Cardinals and Seahawks game because Russell Wilson, number one on pricing. Kyler Murray's fourth in pricing. DeAndre Hopkins, the highest priced wide receiver. DK is the fourth highest receiver. There is a hidden gem, though, in Tyler Lockett. He is the 11th highest price receiver, and he comes in at, what is it, Dustin?
6,600, I believe.
6,600. So you could, if you want a little piece of that game, I would go with Tyler Lockett at 6,600. But let's get into our top three games of the week. Price, what is the number one game to stack?
I think the number one game to stack both ways this week is Green Bay Houston. I'm going to be a little biased. Obviously, I'm a big Texans fan, but the Texans defense is atrocious. Their offense is great. Green Bay just got embarrassed on that America's game of the week, and they laid a dud. Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and absolutely roast Houston. Aaron Jones just watched Henry run for 200 yards. He's going to try and do that too. Bradley Roby cannot cover Devontae Adams. He's a okay man cover, but Devontae Adams is a monster. We don't have anyone who can cover Robert Tonyan. MVS will probably burn us deep for a touchdown. They'll probably hit Jamal Williams on a wheel route. And then on the flip side, the Packers have an amazing cornerback in Jair Alexander. So in theory, you'd say, hey, you're going to stack Green Bay and stay away from Houston because who do you really want to run? You don't want to run Will Fuller against that. But, Dustin and us, we were talking about where Fuller lines up. So 60% of the time, Alexander won't be on him. So I'm going to look at Deshaun Watson with Will Fuller and run it back with Aaron Jones will be probably my favorite one. Because I expect Green Bay to be up, so they'll run the ball. And you expect Houston to throw, which will be to Fuller. I would even look at double stacking with Fuller and Brandon Cooks. So you go that route. On the flip side, if you're going to use Aaron Rodgers, I would use Rodgers. I'd still use Fuller. Would then probably try to fit in Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan, and go cheap elsewhere. Because I think those are probably the two ideal stacks. But I really like the theory behind the first one was my same theory last week where I stacked Watson, Fuller with Derrick Henry because I expected Tennessee to run down our throats and us to have to play catch up. And that's what happened. So there's no reason for that not to happen again. And I think because Dustin talked about Alexander just plays on one side, he doesn't shadow. You move Fuller around and get him against their lesser cornerbacks, and you should be able to get a good game out of Fuller, good game out of Watson, and then Aaron Jones will eat this week.
What about you,
like it.
Dustin? What's the second game of the week to stack?
Well, the second game of the week for me is going to be the Detroit Atlanta game. I mean, obviously, we know Atlanta's shortcomings on defense. You have, I mean, obviously on the Detroit side, you have Galladay, who you obviously should stack with Stafford, and then you have a choice. Marvin Jones has kind of had a down year, and Hawkinson has elevated his game. So, maybe you go Stafford, Galladay, Hawkinson, or you go on the Matt Ryan side of things, and I'd probably choose between Ridley or Julio. I think Julio's in a better spot price wise. So, you go Ryan, Julio, maybe a Hurst, run it back with Galladay. And I think it's a great matchup. I think it's going to be a lot of points scored. Atlanta's kind of, I mean, you touched on it on your QB video. Their run game defense has been better, and so I think Detroit has to throw the ball more this week for sure. And if Atlanta's scoring, then Detroit's going to have to keep up, and vice versa. So it's got a over under of 55. So they're going to score a lot of points, and I like the key pieces there. They're cheaper, like we said, than the Arizona game, and you can fit more of them in to get better pieces elsewhere.
For sure. And just to add to both of these stacks, I think everything y'all said is right on point. And DFS does not have to be hard. A lot of people look for these crazy contrarian plays that are wild. These people are making one lineup and winning $1 million. They're just playing the Cowboys, like the most obvious stack, right? Or they're playing whatever the most obvious stacks are, and they're winning a lot of money. You don't have to be so contrarian or so crazy. Don't get too caught up in ownership and all this stuff. Yes, there's a time and a place for all that, but don't overthink everything. These two games should be stacked for a reason. Now, if you're doing a three lineup, if you're just doing three main lineups, I think your third lineup, I think you should go one contrarian lineup out of the three. I think there's a lot of merit to doing that, but for your two main lineups, like, you don't have to go so contrarian. You can still find value elsewhere.
But even like the theory behind being contrarian is it's not at every single pick.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get confused and are like, all right, I got to fade the chalk everywhere. And that doesn't work in football. They're chalk for a reason.
Like Derrick Henry last week.
Great matchup, smash spot. And Dustin switched off him just because.
I said I want to be a little contrary on Derrick Henry, and I went Ronald Jones.
So someone like me, I play 20 laps a week now. I can kind of play around and fiddle that in and be like, all right, I'm going to fade him in a couple. But I've never understood that I have to fade everybody popular every week. It's not going to work out. You're going to lose your money. Every single time you will lose your money. Because there's a reason they're contrarian, because they're not in the best matchup. And the whole reason we play this is to score DK points and win money. And if you're picking people who aren't in great matchups, you will consistently lose.
Facts. So with that said, we had a little debate here on what the third stack should be. So I'm going to just sit back and enjoy this fireworks show, because Dustin Price, before we actually went live, just lit it up because they were arguing so much. So they'll probably keep it like PG and tame, which would be lame. So go at it.
No, I'll let the Henry fader go first.
Woo!
Let's hear your logic on this.
The what?
The Derrick Henry fader.
And the Chiefs lost last week, guy.
No, I think a great contrarian type game to stack is Carolina and New Orleans. Right, New Orleans scores about 30 points a week. The Panthers have been scoring a lot, and they faced Chicago defense last week. That's really good.
Who are you going to use from New Orleans?
That's to be determined, because I like Latavius this week. But you said, okay, I'm gonna make you eat your own crow here. Who you throw to? Everybody, right?
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Do not necessarily have to run it back with a game. I can go
Point for Dustin. Bang, that's true. You don't have to run it back.
I can go Teddy. I can go DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And then, maybe throw a Lockett in there instead of running it back with somebody from New Orleans.
Because there's no one to run it back from New Orleans with.
I mean, then Michael Thomas is back. You got, Kamara.
So then it's not a game stack. It's just a Carolina stack.
But Price, you're all on Murray.
I do think Latavius Murray is a good play, but you said you don't know if you're going to use anybody. Then how is it a game stack if you're using one team only?
Stacking that game.
No, you're stacking a team. It's not a game stack. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to stack Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey, but no one else on the other side. That's a team stack. It's not a game stack.
But no, but who says team? I'm stacking this team. You say I'm stacking this game.
Yeah.
And then who are you using on the flip side though? Nobody.
You don't have to though.
Okay, we'll see how that works out for you.
All right. Well, I don't think that's a bad contrarian play. But granted, we have to. This is top three stacks.
But if we're gonna be contrarian, you don't go to the fourth highest total because that's not very contrarian. That's just saying, hey, Seattle and Atlanta and Arizona are a little too expensive, so I'm gonna drop down to the next best option.
Whoa. Yours, okay, so you have a game that's 0.5 difference in Pittsburgh and Tennessee.
Okay.
And then you have another game with a 0.5 difference in Cleveland and Cincinnati. I mean, 0.5 difference.
If you're gonna be contrarian, what's the best game out of all those to pick?
Carolina and New Orleans.
Why? They have more popular players. People are going to click them.
Well, New Orleans does.
You don't think people are on to Carolina at this point? Mike Davis has been chalked for fucking a month in a row.
Let them take Mike Davis. I don't want Mike Davis.
He's not playing Mike Davis.
I know, but people understand that offense is scoring points, and they're on there.
Bridgewater, they scored 16 points last week or something because they played Chicago.
Do you think Bridgewater's ownership is going to be above 10%?
I think Bridgewater will be higher on than Burrow.
I think he'll.
All right. Well, let's hear your stack then, Price. We haven't heard your stack yet, even.
Because I think the Browns and Bengals is a better game to stack.
Why?
The Browns just got fucking embarrassed. So you got Baker, who will just either hand off to Hunt or throw it to Odell. Odell's in a good matchup. Hunt's in a good matchup. The Browns defense is okay. It's not great. You got Burrow, who throws 40 times a game. Mixon's been really good this year. He gets a shit ton of volume. And now you got A.J. Green, who finally showed up. So you got him, Boyd in the slot, and Higgins on the outside. Cleveland can't cover all them. So if you got Burrow throwing 45 times.
You don't have to cover when you're sacking Burrow.
Facts.
They'll just get the ball out quick. All he's going to do is throw slants to fucking Boyd or bubble screens to Higgins.
Well, I mean, to be determined, right?
I mean, I get it. The Panthers and Saints is going to be a more popular game. But in theory, if you're going to fade the Seahawks game, why go to a game that's just going to be just as popular?
Because most people don't play three different stacks.
Well, I understand that, but the whole part of having a third stack that's not a big name game is going to one of these games or going to the Steelers-Titans.
I mean, but people know that Burrow chunks the ball a lot. They know Cleveland just got lit up.
And they're not going to want to use them.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see Saturday.
Just like how I said, hey, what are you thinking about Burrow last week? Because y'all were on him 2 weeks ago and he burned you. And you're like, no, fuck him. That's how people are.
Who did I
take? Bias is that.
Who did I take? Higgins.
I know. And I didn't understand why he would take Burrow.
Well, how'd he do?
I honestly don't remember.
He didn't do it. He didn't do good because Higgins got tackled on the one.
All right. What we're gonna do? What we're gonna do is y'all are both gonna make a lineup with each one of those games, and we're gonna see who scores more points, right, out of each one of your lineups. And Dustin does not have to game stack it and run it back with like a Murray or somebody, as long as he stacks the Carolina part of it. And the loser, what does the loser?
3 players.
Yeah.
All right.
And what does the loser have to do? Y'all make up some terms.
We already have a hot chip challenge because you're too pansy.
All right, y'all want to do the hot chip challenge? Just y'all two? The
We're
loser?
already doing it for golf. I'm not going to do it again for this.
Okay.
You want to eat 2 hot chips?
All right, we're gonna come back. One of y'all is gonna make the video of next week of being the loser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's good enough. You have to make the video just calling yourself a loser and explain why you lost and why that the other person's game was the 3rd best stack of the week.
So next week when you're watching Dustin and he's raging, just know he's going to have some, well, this guy got hurt and this bullshit happened and Price just got lucky.
A concussion.
Let me tell you this. I will gladly say that stuff as long as his ass is eating that hot chip for golf.
I hope you have to do fucking both on video. I'll make you do the hot chip one first, and then you'll do the sorry one when you're crying.
Yeah, my face will be like your shirt.
All right, if you're a member at DFS Dads, definitely join the Slack if you're not a part of it yet. And we are going to put out a contest this week for our members and for everybody. So hopefully we can see who amongst us has the best lineup. It'll be fun. We'll do some type of giveaway. We haven't announced that yet, but Price is going to be the one that enters in all the different usernames.
Bridgewater Stack.
Well, you have to actually give us your usernames. We only had 2 people do it last week.
All right. Well, see, members.
Yeah, give us your stuff. You get free stuff.
Give us your info. All right, I think that was pretty good. Price attacked. He was attacking. I dig it.
But
Dusty kind of like got like bold-eyed, like, oh man, I don't have any facts to back any of this up with.
Calm, cool, and collected.
Hey, there's a reason it was Dustin and I going after each other. Chris won't do the chip challenge, and Chris won't step up to this one either.
I don't need to be contrarian. I don't need to overthink it like y'all chumps. All right, we'll see y'all.